Welcome to Mind Shield. We protect the mind and pursue the truth. Let's get started.
All right, today we are diving into one of the absolute toughest challenges in any investigation. It's called attribution. And honestly, it's the point where a case either gets the traction it needs to move toward justice, or it just dies on the vine. We're going to break down what it is, why it's so incredibly difficult, and how you can approach it with real discipline and clarity.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll really define the attribution problem. Then we'll talk about what actually counts as real proof. We'll look at why so many cases go cold, and then we'll walk through the practical steps, how to model a case, how to build a file, and what the lawful path to escalation really looks like.
So let's start with the single biggest hurdle. You know, it's one thing to experience something, to know what happened to you, but it is a whole other ballgame to prove who was actually behind it.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? Documenting what happened is a huge challenge in itself, but proving who did it, that's the killer. That's where cases completely fall apart. Because without a clear, evidence-based link to a specific person or a specific group, there's just no path forward. There's no accountability.
So what do we really mean when we say attribution? Well, think of it like a bridge. On one side you have the incident, what happened. On the other side you have the person or group responsible. Attribution is the bridge that connects them. But here's the thing, that bridge can't be built on feelings or suspicions. It has to be built with solid, verifiable evidence that can survive some pretty intense scrutiny.
Now, attribution in these kinds of cases is uniquely difficult for a bunch of reasons. I mean, first off, the evidence can be transient. It's there 1 minute, gone the next, leaving zero physical trace. On top of that, our modern environments are already electromagnetically noisy, so trying to isolate one specific signal is like finding a needle in a haystack. But maybe the biggest thing is this. Any sophisticated bad actor is going to make plausible deniability their #1 priority. It's really the perfect storm for hiding in plain sight. Okay, so if that's the problem, what on earth does the solution look like? I mean, what counts as actual legitimate proof? Let's take a look at the standard that's required for any kind of formal investigation. An investigation simply cannot move forward based on a subjective experience alone. It has to be built on these pillars of verifiable evidence. We're talking about a consistent, documented timeline of events that establishes a clear pattern. And just as important, you need corroboration, either from independent witnesses or from technical data. Without these solid pieces, a case file is really just a story, not evidence.
And let's zoom in on one critical piece of this, the chain of custody. Look, this is absolutely non-negotiable in any serious investigation. It's the formal paper trail that proves a piece of evidence hasn't been touched, tampered with, or altered in any way from the moment it's collected to the moment it's analyzed. It's what makes evidence count in a court of law.
This is so important to understand. We have to respect the emotional reality of suffering. Someone can feel absolutely 100% certain about what's happening to them and who's doing it. But to get justice inside our legal system, that feeling of certainty has to be translated into the cold, hard language of forensic proof. And that disciplined work, that's the job of an investigation.
To really get this attribution problem, we have to look honestly at why these kinds of investigations just fail to get off the ground so often.
This slide lays out the major roadblocks that just cause cases to go cold. You've got the obvious one. Lack of physical evidence. But then there are these other huge hurdles, like perceived technological implausibility, which is just a fancy way of saying the claims get dismissed because they sound like science fiction. And then, of course, you've got cognitive biases and a general stigma that can create mistrust, stopping an investigation before it even has a chance to start. This is a critical question, and it's one that every investigator, and frankly, every single one of us trying to make sense of a confusing situation, has to ask. Our brains are these incredible pattern-matching machines, right? But that exact strength can also be a major weakness. Now, these biases aren't character flaws, okay? They're just features of how our brains work. Take confirmation bias, for example. That's our natural tendency to latch onto information that confirms what we already think is true. A good, disciplined investigator doesn't pretend these biases don't exist. Instead, they build systems to counteract them, to stay focused on what's objectively true. So, given all these challenges, all these potential pitfalls, how do we move forward in a responsible way? Well, we do it by building a model, a framework of possibilities that's broad, methodical, and completely driven by evidence. The funnel analogy is perfect here. You have to start at the widest point of the funnel, open to every single plausible explanation. You don't jump to a conclusion first. You gather data impartially, and then you only, and I mean only, start to narrow your focus as objective patterns in that data start pointing you in a specific direction.
And this is what a responsible broad model looks like. See? You don't start with the most exotic explanation. You start by systematically testing and ruling out the more common things first. Could it be an environmental factor, like some weird electromagnetic coupling from faulty wiring? Could it be a simple device malfunction? You have to seriously investigate these more mundane possibilities before you can responsibly consider anything else.
And it's also critical to remember that even if you land in that malicious interference category, the type of actor makes a huge difference. A state actor, for instance, has incredible resources, but they're constrained by the need for absolute deniability. A rogue actor, on the other hand, might be using modified commercial gear, and that's going to leave a completely different and maybe a lot messier forensic trail. The who changes how and what you look for.
Okay, let's get to the most practical and I think the most empowering part of this whole explainer. How you can turn confusion and distress into a credible, actionable case file that a professional can actually work with.
This right here is probably the most powerful thing a person in this situation can do. It's shifting your focus. Your best move is not find the villain. Your best move is to raise the quality of your evidence. Why? Because bad actors thrive on confusion. So clarity becomes your weapon. A high-quality, well-organized body of evidence is the ultimate antidote to confusion and deniability.
And this is exactly how you do it. We call it a corroboration pack, and it's not a diary of your feelings. It's a structured dossier. It's designed from the ground up to be understood and taken seriously by law enforcement, by attorneys, or by technical experts. Each one of these components serves a very specific purpose in building a coherent and compelling story, based entirely on facts.
The devil is truly in the details. Just look at the level of specificity we're talking about for a useful incident ledger. Every single detail you can log, from the exact time and location to what other devices were on in the room, is another data point. You're not just telling a story anymore. You are methodically building a forensic trail that can actually be analyzed for patterns.
So, you've done the hard work, you've put in the hours, you've created a high-quality case file. Now what? What are the correct, lawful next steps to actually take?
This escalation process is so critical to get right. It is not one frantic phone call. It's a methodical progression. You start by filing police reports to create that official record. Then, you work on getting third-party validation from experts. After that, you consult legal counsel for strategy. It's only then, with that solid foundation in place, that you can effectively approach higher-level agencies. Each step builds on the credibility of the last one.
This ancient piece of wisdom really is the core principle of any just investigation. I mean, the entire framework we've just talked about is built on this one idea. You have to hear the evidence first. You gather the facts patiently and methodically before you arrive at an answer or, more importantly, an accusation.
So we'll leave you with this final, challenging thought. In an age of complex technology and weaponized, plausible deniability, the path to justice might not be easy, but it requires something from all of us: a higher standard of discipline, of rigor, and an unwavering commitment to evidence above all else.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to come back next time as we break down the technology itself, separating the science fact from the science fiction. We'll see you then.